Good morning, good afternoon and good evening, wherever in the world you are. My name's Coral Jones and I'm a survivor and thriver, having been abused by about 4 different partners, who runs a page called Surviving and Thriving After Narcissistic Abuse. The reason I say about 4 partners is because some of them I didn't know what abuse was at that time, and so I can't actually remember what they did. The ones I can are some of the ones that I will probably talk about this evening, because I have actually gone no contact with 3 of them successfully, and I'm now in the throes of going no contact with the 4th. So I'm hoping I can share with you some interesting things that I've noticed about going no contact, about what it is and what I call the rules. And also we can support one another and enable each other to heal whilst we're going through the process of getting over what these monsters do. So the first time I went no contact was with my husband, my ex-husband. And although we were divorced about 20 years ago, actually it's probably 19, because I think it was the year 2000 that the divorce came through, I had to be low contact to begin with because I have a son with him and we co-parented him. He's now 22. But when he was 19, he was brainwashed by his dad, and so I went no contact with his dad. I wasn't absolutely no contact with my son, but almost, because he cut me out of his life because of what his narcissistic father was telling him. And so enough about that. The next one that I went no contact with was directly after I left my husband. I got involved with somebody who I'd known for a long time and who it transpired was a sociopath, or that's what they called him at the time. And I was with him on and off for about 6 years, throughout the divorce process and afterwards, and that finally ended in 2004. And I went no contact after finding out that he'd been having a full-blown relationship for about a year, whilst he was also seeing me with a friend's sister-in-law's friend, if that makes sense. Finally, I was also with somebody I can only term a psychopath, and there's good reasons for that, which I won't go into. But I was with him for about 22 months before I found out who he really was, and that was from 2012 until 2014. I went no contact with him after I found that he'd been having an affair for I really don't know how long. And he assaulted me and then did a moonlight flit, taking a lot of stuff from my house and leaving me and my son stranded in a campsite after I not long had an operation. So those are the 3 that I've successfully gone no contact with, and I've recently discovered that a friend of 37 years is in fact a co-fit narcissist, and I missed it because on the face of it his behaviour was quite saintly, to be honest, but the red flags were all there. I had, about 2 weeks before we actually got together, had a nervous breakdown as a result of some other things that were going on in my life, but also probably because of the build-up of all the abuse from the others, and I think he took advantage of that. I've now been 14 days no contact with him. After several tries, probably 4 or 5, because he kept hoovering me back in. And the most important reason for getting rid of him, I suppose, it really started around about my birthday in September, because he just turned on me and the mask dropped, as the saying goes, the night after my birthday. and I was aware of it because I was completely and utterly sober, but he wasn't. And then finally on Boxing Day, he walked out, having given me a really nice present on Christmas Day. He walked out on me on Boxing Day yet again, having been rude and patronising, and he was given a choice. I said, if you're going to carry on being rude and patronising, go and do it somewhere else. And so he did. He probably thinks I will still contact him because he is the one that borrowed my copy of Psychopath free and read it, me thinking that he was trying to understand at the beginning of the relationship what I'd been through, when in actual fact I think he was probably self-diagnosing. The complication with him was that I had gone no contact about 10 years ago from him because he had sent me some nasty texts and crossed one of my boundaries, and I was scared, having not long come out of the relationship with the sociopath. And the reason that I went back this time was because I believed that I'd been wrong about that, and I just got triggered, and that really, you know, it was okay, and he was a long-term friend, and there was no way that he was one of them, so to speak. I was wrong, and now I understand a little bit more about the process and sort of healing that we need to do, and hence why I want to do this, to be able to share with you and others what I know and my experiences, because I hope that they will help other people to understand what we as victims or survivors actually go through. So I wanted to talk about no contact and what it means, partly to sort of get clear about it in my own mind, what it means, and the rules, as I like to call them. And because I've seen on some sites some things that got me a little bit worried and make me think that the concept is kind of a little bit misunderstood sometimes. My aim is actually to empower people and for everyone to help each other in to heal from these monsters, so that we can go on to thrive and to live happy and healthy lives and be in healthy relationships. So I'm going to try and do this in 3 parts. First of all, I'm going to talk about no contact and what I think the rule should be, as it were. Then I'm going to talk about why I think people, and that includes me, go back for more. And then I'm going to try and open it up to a discussion if there's any more of us around other than me. Otherwise, you can just post your comments and I'll answer them, or hopefully other people will answer them as well. And we can get stuff out there and help each other heal and not actually contact these people. So in my opinion, the number 1 rule for no contact is actually you take your power back and you decide that this, what has been happening to you, is not going to continue. And when you do that, you feel so much better just making that decision. You say to yourself, I'm moving on. I'm not going to have this in my life. I deserve better. And it's you making that decision that primarily is the main driving force of what no contact is. It doesn't matter whether they've discarded you. It doesn't matter whether they are just doing a silent treatment. It really is totally irrelevant. The key fact is that you've made that decision. You're going to move on and you're not going to allow this to happen anymore. It's hard. Nobody's going to say that it's easy, but that is, in my mind, the primary rule for no contact, is that you have made the decision, not the narcissist. So the second rule, I think, is that you block them everywhere from being able to get in contact with you. No exceptions. So you block them on social media, email, mobile phone, from doing texts calls and on your landline if you've got one, and you don't go anywhere that you know they go, he or she goes. You don't do any drive-bys. You don't go by the same routes. You don't go to the same places that you used to go. You don't go places that you know he goes. You even change where and how you shop so that he can't bump into you anywhere. And you have to be quite vigilant about this, because they will do almost anything if they want to. If they're not ready to let you go, they're not ready to discard you, they will do almost anything to reinitiate contact, even if that is to just drop you after a day, because for whatever reason they seem to need and be addicted to, a bit like we are, but for different reasons, us and the supply that we give them. So the other thing that I think is important, number 3, if you like, of the rules, is to make sure that you're not coming up with any excuses to contact them in your own mind. You just have to keep silent, and it is the hardest thing to stop yourself from reaching out. There are so many times as well where you get angry, not just angry, you can be sad and you can want to share something with them, or you can suddenly realize that something that they said or did was or had a different motivation from the one you thought it did. That's part of the healing process, but it's really important that you don't talk to them, because that just recreates the madness. You get enmeshed again and you start to second guess yourself again, and until there is peace, you can't heal. So when I said about some misunderstandings about what no contact was, it seems to me, and I've come across some people saying that they've gone no contact, but they live in the same house. You cannot go no contact and live in the same house. You actually have to physically be away from that person and not able to engage with them at any level for you to have the peace to be able to heal and think about what has happened. And it's quite amazing the process that goes on in your brain once you do that. Once you disengage, your brain seems to automatically come up with these little flashbacks of what happened, and your brain starts to see them in a different way, most likely in the way that they actually were meant. And one of the reasons that narcissists and psychopaths and sociopaths tend to isolate and also be kind of on top of you, don't they, a lot, and keeping you occupied, is so that you don't have chance to think about what they're actually doing. So when you disengage and you go no contact, it gives your brain chance to work through those events, to see the reality of how that person was and what they were really doing. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to give yourself that space to be able to do that. And it's a really important part of the healing process. So, number 4, about stuff of theirs. If they've got stuff at your place, or you've got stuff at their place, if you've already made a plan to go no contact, then hopefully you will have already sorted out the fact that your stuff or their stuff no longer resides in either place. One of the things I did with my last one was every time he left me and walked out on me so many times, it was unbelievable. And yes, I kept going back, and one of the reasons I did was partly to get my stuff, so that every time he did it, a bit more of his stuff that was at my flat, my house, went back to his flat, and I got a bit more of my stuff from his house, from his flat, sorry. And so that it was really important in my own mind to plan that, and also kind of wean myself off. That was one of the things I did. to make myself realise that what was really going on was that he kept just ending the relationship. He knew that one of the things that upset me the most was the fact that he wouldn't engage. He was stonewalling whenever we'd have an argument. The arguments were about, guess what? The fact that he kept leaving. Unsurprisingly, he also knew that had happened in other examples of what I've been through. So why would a normal person keep doing that? So I think I kind of summed up in about 4 or 5 different points about no contact. Just to reiterate, so taking your power back, blocking everywhere, not going to places that you went to together or where you know he goes, just keeping silent and not finding excuses to contact, and then dealing with stuff prior to when you actually leave. And so now I guess I want to move on to what happens afterwards. So when you go no contact, if you've ever done it, you all know that you get withdrawal symptoms. And this is because there's something chemical that goes on as a result of the intermittent reinforcement that the narcissist or psychopath or sociopath gives you. Your body produces chemicals in response to the Mr. Nice Guy side of the narcissist, but also it creates bad chemicals, if you like, which are in response to the stress that they create for you. So on the one hand, you've got dopamine, which is released, and on the other hand, you've got adrenaline, which is released, which creates the fight or flight mechanism that you'll hear a lot of people talk about. So the body actually craves that dopamine to relieve the negative chemicals that are going on. And it's such that even a really small amount of contact, it can just be a one-word text or something like that, will actually relieve the pain. You will have noticed. But, and I can't express this enough, the pain after that will be 10 times worse. And the withdrawal will be 10 times worse. The narcissist will actually take advantage of that fact if you contact them, especially to, so say, put you in your place and treat you even worse than they did the last time. And if you've been through it, then you'll know that the next time that they discard you, their abuse is even worse. They'll find something even worse. Especially if they're psychopathic or sociopathic, they'll turn around and they'll find the thing that you probably told them at the beginning of the relationship that would hurt you the most and use that. The last one that I was with knew that I liked Christmas, and so he deliberately set out to, on Boxing Day, come down to my house, not for very long, and then just walk out again. You can't ever get to the bottom of these people, though. There's no sense in asking why. I'm guessing the reason is because 10 years ago I went no contact by not answering his text, and I had to answer his text, and this is why he sent me nasty texts, because I wouldn't answer his text. I wasn't being a good girl. And so he ended up ringing my parents to get them to tell me that I had to answer his text. Unbelievable. Anyway, so if he contacts you, this is called hoovering, trying to suck you back in. That's why it's called hoovering. If he contacts you, the only thing that I get going through my mind is ignore, ignore, ignore. That's how I did it 10 years ago. And the more I ignored, the nastier the text got. First of all, they were quite nice. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean it. I know I disrespected what you said. and all this sort of thing. And then they just got nastier and nastier and nastier until there was something about a leopard sniffing heaven turns its rump towards me. And that actually quite frightened me. He thought, because we knew each other in our teens, that he could say that I was a leopard that would never change my spots, and that all I deserved was this poor treatment that I was getting. So, like I said, there's no getting to the bottom of why they do these things. However, you just need to protect yourself. Once you've gone no contact, they will be out for blood. No matter how much they say in their hoovering messages that they're sorry or that they really love you and all the rest of it, they will be plotting for how much and how badly they can hurt you on the basis of something that you probably would have told them during the love bombing stage at the beginning, because you thought this was a nice person. They will be planning how to use that against you. So ignore. I think one of my favourite ways to look at the silent treatment or ghosting or going no contact, because going no contact is you and silent treatment and ghosting is them, is when they think that they're doing that and you're thinking, actually, I've gone no contact. The longer that goes on, the better it is for you. And because the longer it goes on, the more you've got a chance to heal and have that peace that I was talking about earlier, the peace where you're getting over it and your brain is going over and over the things that happened, which is annoying, I know. However, it's the brain working out what really went on. It's the brain working out what the abuse was, and it's part of the healing process. So it's really important. And as I said before, it's really vital that you don't actually have contact with them, because that will just confuse you. And the reason it confuses you is because there's this thing called cognitive dissonance. When you actually see the person in the flesh, you think, nah, they're not really abusive. It's just me. I'm seeing it that way because I've been in these situations before. Well, that's me anyway. That's how I've seen it. And that's why I ended up going back to the guy after 10 years, having gone no contact. It's called cognitive dissonance, and it's a real thing. It is a thing. A guy called Leon Festinger, I can't remember what year it was, bear with me and I'll tell you because it's in my notes somewhere, invented the term to describe why people, or how people dealt with having two conflicting beliefs at the same time. So if you think about it, with a narcissist, on the one hand, you've got Mr. Nice Guy, and on the other hand, you've got Mr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde, whichever one it is, the nasty one. Your brain can't come to terms with why 1 minute they're one thing and one thing they're the other reason, the other minute they're the other. It can't come to terms with that. And that is why you veer from being really angry to being really upset, because you remember the good times. And then when you're angry, you remember the bad times, and your brain's actually working out what really went on. That's why it's so important to maintain that peace of no contact. So cognitive dissonance is vital that the brain eventually resolves that, and it can only resolve that in one of three ways. Let me just see if I can remember what those are. First of all, you've either got to change your beliefs, values, behavior, or opinions. Okay, so that can be done through justification or idealization. And we all know, don't we, that idealization is what happens with us, or from them to us at the beginning of the relationship. That's what the love bombing stage is, when they idealize us. Or we can acquire new information that outweighs one of those two beliefs. And one of the ways we do that is from our own brain remembering things, which I went into before. And number three is kind of reducing the importance of one of the beliefs. So you could also argue to yourself, when you've gone no contact, that if you believed that he was nice, why would you now be in this situation where you wanted to go to no contact? Which is why some people actually recommend, and I would as well quite strongly, that you write down the top 10 things that he did to you, so that when you feel like you're going to contact the person again or reach out, you don't, because you read the list instead. You either write the list or read the list, and you can make the list as long as you like, but the top 10 is going to be the surefire way for you to be able to reduce that cognitive dissonance that I was just talking about. It will change your beliefs. It will mean your brain starts to adhere to the new information that outweighs the belief that the guy was okay, or the girl for that matter. So because cognitive dissonance is so uncomfortable, he believed that people would actually take steps to lessen it in one of those 3 ways. And that's what I'm recommending you do on a conscious level in order to maintain no contact. So what I'd like to do now, if possible, is stop talking and ask people if they've got any questions, if anybody's actually watching. If you've got any questions, can you just type them in the box next to... Right, okay, so nobody's got any questions at the moment. What I would like to suggest then is that people post their questions or any experiences or any other recommendations about going no contact on here, and then hopefully we can open up a discussion, and next time I do one of these, maybe I'll be able to answer them on another Facebook Live. So thank you very much for joining me. My name's Coral Jones. Good evening, good morning, and good night, depending on where you are in the world. Lovely to talk to you tonight, and good luck if you've just gone no contact. I'm 14 days and counting, and I'll keep you posted about how I get on. Thanks very much for listening. Bye-bye for now.